Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly, greatly appreciate it. It is a Wednesday, so like we do every single Wednesday here on the channel, it is time for this week's top 10 countdown, and I've got a funny story about this week's top 10 countdown. Before I get into it, it is wrestling related this week. We know last week was college football related. This week is wrestling related. But Monday, my good friend Eric called me, and him and I were just discussing college football and life in general and things like that. And I was telling him about this week's top 10 countdown coming up on Wednesday. And then I was just, going over some random topics and thinking about random stuff, but I didn't really have a certain top 10 in mind, so I wasn't really sure, which one I was going to do this week. And he had asked me to do top 10 all-time wrestling managers, and I said, that's fine, I'll do that. And then when I got off the phone with him, I got to thinking, somebody else had actually asked me to do top 10 managers, but it was around a month or so ago when I was getting so many different ideas for top 10 countdowns that I just totally forgot that anybody had asked me. But when Eric asked me, it hit me. Somebody else asked me that. So this week's top 10 countdown is actually courtesy of Mark and Eric, because Mark is the original one who had asked me. And Mark, I apologize, I just did not write it down, and it came at a time when I was getting like 5 or 6 requests a week to do a certain top 10, and I just totally forgot about yours. And luckily Eric asked me, and it came back to me that Mark had previously asked me. So now this week's top 10 countdown, courtesy of Mark and Eric, is top 10 all-time wrestling managers. And of course, as always, when I get done, I'll go back and name a few guys that barely missed the top 10. But as always, when you have a top 10, somebody has to get left off. There is females on here, and there are also some males on here, but I think everybody who has watched wrestling any length of time at all will know all the names on this list. Number 10 on my list is Missy Hyatt. Of course, she was around the wrestling business for a long time, but her prime was in the late NWA days and early WCW days up until the mid to late 90s, and she finally started cutting back some, but that was her prime. But Missy Hyatt is number 10 on my list. Number 9 is Miss Elizabeth, the late great Miss Elizabeth, who I believe died in 2003. She's number 9 on my list. Number 8 is somebody else who is no longer with us, and that's Sister Sherry, Sensational Sherry, or just Sherry, whatever you prefer to call her. She's number 8 on my list. Number 7 on my list of the all-time best wrestling managers is Paul Ellering. And of course, he made it big with the Legion of Doom back when they first started. He has a daughter now named Rachel who is trying to make it big in the wrestling business. Number 6 on my list is a guy that's still around to this day, and he is so annoying, but he's doing his job because he's trying to be, and that is Paul Heyman. And before we get into the top 5, I'll go back and recap numbers 10 through 6. Number 10 was Missy Hyatt. Number 9, Miss Elizabeth. Number 8, Sister Sherry. Number 7, Paul Ellering. And number 6 was Paul Heyman. And before I get into the top 5, let me quickly mention, in case you have not heard yet, if you're a wrestling fan, you will know this name, but Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff passed away on Monday at the age of 71 due to complications from Alzheimer's. And number 5 on the list is J.J. Dillon. Number 4 is Paul Bearer. And the top 3, this will be my top 3 in this order, but I think if you ask any wrestling fan, they're pretty much going to give you the same top 3, but it may not be in the exact same order as my top 3. But number 3 is Jimmy Hart. And then honestly, the top 2, I really couldn't decide which one to put it 2 and which one to put it 1, because you could flip-flop them all day long. Number 2 is the late, great Bobby the Brain Heenan. And in my opinion, he's the best mouthpiece in the history of professional wrestling. And number 1 is Jim Cornette. That is my all-time top 10 best wrestling managers. And a few guys that barely missed the list was Mr. Fuji. Of course, everybody remembers him managing Yokozuna in the mid-90s in the WWF, but he also managed a few other guys during his career. We also have Oliver Humperdinck and Harvey Whippleman and Slick and Teddy Long. I used to love when Slick managed Kamala, the Ugandan giant, back in the mid-90s of the WWF. And Harvey Whippleman was just like Paul Heyman. He was annoying, but that's what he was trying to be, so he was doing his job. I loved Harvey Whippleman. That is my opinion of the best all-time top 10 wrestling managers. If you're a wrestling fan or know someone who is, please feel free to tell them to give me their thoughts and their comments on my top 10 and exactly what order you would have them in, especially the top 3 with Jimmy Hart, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Jim Cornette. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. Did you know that cow farts come from the dairy air? And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.